Honoured to have the Deputy Prime Minister with me this morning. How are you? Good to see you.
Honoured to be here with you, Kate. Delighted to see you.
Talking about the poppy appeal there, you'll wear yours with pride, I'm sure.
Of course I will, yes.
Talk to me about what the difference is, talking about Gaza, of course. What's the difference between a pause and a ceasefire?
Well, what the UK government has been arguing for is a pause to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, and that's the difference between a pause and a ceasefire. A pause is to allow that aid to come in those circumstances for the duration required. I don't think it's a reasonable position to say when Hamas has attacked Israel, Israel needs to take action to protect itself, to say we can have a complete cessation of hostilities. Israel has to take action to remove this threat against its civilians, which has cost it over 1,000 lives.
Just looking at the latest YouGov poll and the strong public support for a ceasefire.
Well, the position of the United Kingdom government is what's right, and what is right is that we allow humanitarian aid in.
It's not necessarily right.
And it's also the case that Israel has a right to defend itself against these terrorist attacks. And I think we need to remember in this country, if we'd been in the position where over 1,000 of our civilians have been killed in cold blood by terrorists, people would be demanding that we take action. That's a right of every nation state to protect itself. And we shouldn't be saying to the Israeli government, you've got to stop action in a way that wouldn't enable it to eliminate this threat.
What about the loss of life?
Well, I deplore and I'm heartbroken by every loss of innocent civilian lives. But actually, the way to stop further losses of innocent civilian lives is to remove this terrorist threat and to move to a position where we can restore stability and peace to this region.
Is there a humanitarian crisis in Gaza?
There is a very serious situation in Gaza.
Does it amount to a humanitarian crisis?
We need to be clear about how this came about.
I'm asking you to be clear.
In the first place. This came about in the first place because the fences around Gaza were breached by Hamas terrorists.
We know that.
And they charged them there and they murdered over 1,000 people.
I'm talking to you this morning about a baby, a woman with a dead baby in her arms.
This is a really important point.
Everything we're talking about is very important.
This hasn't occurred in a vacuum. This has occurred in a situation where Israel is now seeking to take action to protect its civilians, its country, from this abhorrent terrorist attack and stop it happening again. Now, the difference between Hamas and Israel is that in doing so, Israel is seeking to minimise civilian casualties, whereas Hamas is going out there actively to maximise civilian murders. Now, you can't conduct a military offensive against an enemy that hides amongst the civilian population, that targets your country from amongst the civilian population without there being some civilian impact. But I believe that Israel is seeking to minimise those numbers, and we continue to urge Israel to respect international law and to minimise civilian casualties.
Some civilian impact. Have you seen the pictures?
Yes, of course I've seen the pictures, and it's heartbreaking, the loss of any innocent civilian life. But the way that we stop this continuing violence is to eliminate the risk of Hamas terrorist attacks from Gaza. And the UK government has been steadfast in saying that Israel has a right to defend itself, whilst also saying that Israel should seek to minimise civilian casualties.
UN Secretary-General, did he misspeak yesterday?
Well, I think it's for the UN Secretary-General to explain his position. What I would say is that there is only one group of people responsible for this loss of life in Israel, and those are Hamas terrorists. There shouldn't be any attempt to justify their action or to give it any wider meaning. This was a cold-blooded terrorist attack, and I think it would be helpful if the UN Secretary-General made that clear, and I believe he has clarified his comments subsequently.
He did. The US urging Israel not to engage in an all-out ground assault. Is the UK seconding that?
Well, in terms of our position, which is to say that Israel has the right to defend itself, I'm not going to get into the position of second-guessing decisions taken by the Israeli government. I think Israel has a right to defend itself. Any nation-state has a right to remove this kind of terrorist attack, and Israel will take necessary steps to do so.
Talk to me about the British hostages. Where are we with that?
Well, this is a very serious situation. Actually, immediately after this media round I'm doing this morning, I'll be chairing a ministerial meeting of COBRA to update our position in relation to hostages, we are continuing to make representations across the wider Middle East. The Prime Minister had very productive conversations with the Emir of Qatar, and actually we've seen Qatar has played a pivotal role in the release of 2 hostages so far. Of course, we hope to make further progress with the release of hostages. We are engaging with our allies across the region to seek to facilitate that, but we are also engaging in terms of intelligence and other understanding of the position of them.
So a COBRA meeting, who'll be there?
Well, it will be bringing together representatives from the relevant government departments, so from the Ministry of Defence, from the Foreign Office, from the Cabinet Office. And the Cabinet Office, we have the National Security Secretariat, and I lead the Cabinet Office. This is the way of bringing different bits of government together to understand what further steps we can do and to assess the current situation.
And is it the sole aim to discuss the hostages or the situation in the region?
Well, we will discuss the hostages and we'll discuss the wider situation in the region, and we'll also discuss, further to our conversation at the beginning of this, securing humanitarian aid. And it's about ensuring that we have cross-governmental ministerial grip on this situation.
Peter Bone being suspended from the House of Commons for 6 weeks, I think, for his behaviour, which was completely inappropriate. It's been decided. How concerned are you about another by-election? They've not been going well for you, have they?
Well, Parliament has spoken on this issue last night, and I believe that Peter Bone is subject to a 6-week suspension, and there'll be the further steps. So we're not in the situation right now that there's going to be a by-election. Well, that's up to the people of Peter Bone's constituency. And of course, any by-election for a government that has been in power for 13 years is always going to be challenging. But if there is a by-election and it's a very big if, then we'll go out and make our case. Kay, you've been reporting politics for many years, not too many years. You know what it's like for incumbent governments, particularly when a government has been in power for a period of time. And I'm not going to deny the...
So you're already accepting you're going to lose it?
No, I'm not saying we're going to lose it at all. I'm saying that we'll go out there and make our case very robustly. And actually, I think that if you look at what Rishi Sunak, as Prime Minister, said at party conference, I think he's set out a clear vision for where he wants to take the country, and we'll be very proud to make that case. OK,
just talk to me about AI before I let you go. I know the Prime Minister is going to be talking about that. Risk of cyber attacks as a result of AI, how does that work?
Well, first of all, I should say in respect of AI, this is a huge opportunity, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this could potentially transform our ability to tackle some of humanity's greatest challenges, whether it's climate change, whether it's curing cancer or dementia. But at the same time, we do need to responsibly guard against the risks. Now, in respect of cyber attacks or indeed other risks, what AI can do is twofold. First of all, it proliferates the range of actors. So if you think about your proverbial teenage kid in the garage or their bedroom, by the application of AI, that's going to enhance their capabilities to conduct those kind of cyber attacks. But also, at the same time, the existing people who are acting in this space, whether it's hostile states or other, their capability can be enhanced by AI. So I think it's right that we bring together different bits of government, indeed internationally, and companies, these so-called frontier AI companies, to see how we can mitigate those risks.
OK. How long do you think I've been covering politics for?
Oh, no more than 10 years.
Hey, since Margaret Thatcher won her first election. Wonderful. You were probably still at school, weren't you? Don't tell me, don't answer that question. It's good to see you, Minister. Thanks very much indeed. Deputy Prime Minister, I should say, forgive me.